to the story, a little disclaimer. This video contains heavy spoilers from the game. Now, let's join the city of Lumière and set off on our expedition. Long ago, on the far edge of the known world, there stood an island city bathed in perpetual twilight. Its name was Lumière, the City of Light. By day, the gas lamps still glowed like fireflies along its cobblestone streets, as if even the sun itself feared to shine too brightly here. Wrought iron balconies curled over old stone cafes. Street performers painted swirls of colour on the air. Carriages rattled gently across the bridges over silent canals. It was beautiful, heartbreakingly beautiful. And yet, for all its charm, Lumière lived in fear. For once each year, without fail, something terrible occurred. The people called it the Gommage. No one knew how it had first begun. Some whispered it had been a punishment from the heavens. Others said it was the price of some forgotten sin. All that mattered was this. Every year, a towering monolith at the heart of the city awoke. Its black surface would shimmer like ink, and upon it, in strokes of shimmering paint, a number would appear. A number, and nothing else. And on the very moment that number appeared, every soul in the city who had reached that age or older would vanish. No screams, no warning, no bodies left behind, only absence. One year, the monolith showed 67, and every person aged 67 or more was erased. The next year, 66, then 65. The number dropped year after year, like a descending clock counting down toward nothing. The painter of that number was no ordinary artist. She was a figure of mystery and dread. The paintress? She appeared only on the day of Gommage, veiled in flowing silks, face hidden behind a porcelain mask. She would float before the monolith, dip her brush into shimmering light, and paint the next number of death. Then she would vanish. No plea, no prayer could reach her. This had gone on for 67 long years. The people of Lumière lived knowing the Gommage would take them. Not if, but when. But every year, when a new number appeared, those who had just 1 year left were offered a choice. They could wait, or they could fight. Those who chose to fight joined what was known as an expedition, a desperate band of the doomed, setting sail for the mysterious mainland, hoping to find the paintress and end her curse before their year was over. 32 expeditions had gone before. None had returned. And so our tale begins with the 33rd. Expedition 33. Among the doomed was a man named Gustave. He was clever, resourceful, an engineer by trade. He had a prosthetic arm of burnished brass and whirring gears, which he had built himself after an accident. Gustave had not planned to join the expedition. He had something to live for. Sophie, the woman he loved. They had dreamed of escaping Lumière together one day. But on the morning of Gommage, Sophie turned 33. And as the monolith's surface rippled and the number 33 burned across it in molten gold, she simply vanished. Gustave stood frozen in the silence. Then something inside him broke. He had 1 year left, 1 year before the Gommage claimed him too. And so, with tears unshed and fury in his heart, was not what the old books had promised. Once it had been the cradle of civilization. Now it was a shattered dream. Forests twisted in impossible shapes. Stone cities lay crumbled and half buried, their spires leaning like broken teeth. Pale, unnatural creatures roamed the valleys, shapes half formed, as if reality itself had forgotten how to finish painting them. It was a world unravelling at the edges, and in the middle of this ruin, the paintress waited. The expedition marched on, led by a grim captain and a ragged banner. Among them was Maëlle, a quiet young woman barely old enough to volunteer. She kept close to Gustave, who treated her as a younger sister. There were others: Lune, a scholar of arcane history; Ciel, a warrior with eyes like summer sky, and several more who had little in common except this: they were all marked for death within the year. Early on, the company was ambushed. From the swirling mists stepped a tall man with hair white as bone, leading an army of monstrous constructs. His name was Renoir. He fought like a phantom, and though the expedition fought bravely, many were cut down. Gustave and a few survivors barely escaped. From that moment on, Maëlle began to dream. Strange, fractured visions. A masked girl in a sunlit studio, a voice whispering her name, a hidden gallery beyond a door that did not exist. The others called them fever dreams. But Gustave listened, because he too had begun to sense something, watching them from the corners of the world. A figure called the curator, who seemed to move behind the tapestry of reality itself. Weeks passed. They bled. They starved. They marched through storms of paint like ash. And then, one night beneath a sky that pulsed like wet ink, everything fell apart. The expedition was ambushed again. This time, Gustave threw himself between Maëlle and a killing blow. She watched him fall, eyes wide with disbelief, as the only family she had left bled out on the stones. His last words to her were simple: "Finish it." And then he was gone. Maëlle buried her grief and marched on with Lune and Ciel. In the desolate ruins of a glass cathedral, they found someone unexpected, a man named Verso. He looked impossibly young, and yet spoke of things only the dead should know. He claimed he had once been part of Expedition 1, the very first to ever leave Lumière, and he claimed that he and Renoir had both survived all these years because the paintress had cursed them, or perhaps blessed them, with immortality. Renoir had become a champion, guarding the path to her lair. Verso had turned wanderer, embittered, yet still secretly hoping for release. Verso told them of the Axons, ancient godlike beasts whose crystallized hearts might pierce the barrier around the paintress. And so, the survivors hunted the Axons. Each battle was like duelling a natural disaster, storms that screamed, titans of molten glass and living ink. One by one, they claimed the Axons' hearts, and with them, the strength to continue. At last, they reached Renoir's manor, a vast and crumbling palace perched on a cliff above a black sea. Inside, portraits watched them with eyes that moved. Corridors twisted back on themselves like spirals of paper. Time seemed to slip. A candle would burn down in a heartbeat, or stay lit for hours without melting at all. Renoir awaited them in the grand ballroom, leaning on a silver cane, smiling, with eyes that did not age. He spoke gently, almost kindly, this world. Without her, it will all collapse. But they had come too far. The battle shook the manor to its foundations. Renoir fought like a hurricane of blades and living paint. But at last, they struck him down. As his immortal shell crumbled, he whispered, "You fools. She was trying to save you." And then even his dust faded into the air. Beyond the manor, beyond a shattered canyon, where the stars hung low enough to touch, they found her, the paintress. She sat in a vast studio, her throne surrounded by floating canvases, whole landscapes captured in frames of gilded bone. Her mask was serene porcelain. Her eyes burned like twin suns behind it. They struck. The battle was unreal, the walls melting into new forms with each sweep of her brush. Mountains rose, oceans crashed, and the very laws of the world bent under her strokes. But at last they pierced her heart. As she fell, her mask cracked, and from her lips came a single name, Aline. The paintress was not a goddess at all, but a woman, Aline de Sandre, and the masked girl from Maël's visions, her daughter, Alicia. Verso staggered forward, eyes wide, as memory flooded him. He had been Aline's son. Renoir had been his adoptive brother. Aline had not cursed Lumière out of malice. She had created the monolith and the gommage to delay something worse. A being called the Curator, the hidden architect of the erasure. The numbers were not death sentences. They were warnings. Aline had been sacrificing her own humanity to hold the Curator at bay. And Alicia had died. But Aline had painted her back to life, hidden her inside the world as another person, hoping she could one day succeed where all others failed. That person was Maël. Maël collapsed as the truth hit her like thunder. She was Alicia de Sandre. She had been reborn, her memories sealed away, given another chance at life. And now, with Aline's death, the Curator was free. The fabric of the world began to unravel. Lumière itself trembled, buildings flickering like candle flames. The sky peeled back, revealing white void beneath. At the end, all that remained was choice. Verso believed there was only one way to be free. Destroy the canvas, tear down the painted world entirely, even if it meant losing everything and everyone. But Maël, Alicia, could not bear to let it all go. She believed she could take Aline's place, become the new paintress, and hold the world together, even if it cost her freedom. And so, two paths opened. In one, Alicia embraced her power. She painted Lumière anew, recreating its people from memory. Gustave returned. Sophie returned. Even Verso walked its streets again, though he did not remember the pain that had brought him here. The city was safe, timeless, beautiful, but Alicia could feel the truth like a splinter. This world was only paint. It would eventually decay, as all art does, and when it did, she would fade with it. In the other path, Verso won. He struck down the Curator, shattered the canvas, and cast Alicia out of it. Reality reasserted itself. The curse ended. The monolith cracked and fell, but Lumière was gone. Aline and Alicia were gone, and Verso was left standing alone on a cold shore, with no one left to remember why he had done it. And so ends the tale of Expedition 33, a tale of doomed souls who marched into the unknown, chasing gommage has ended, and the city of light sleeps at last.